Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It is Wednesday.
It is.
Beautiful morning today in
Foggy.
Western Kentucky. A little foggy, but still nice. Up there. Today, Jesus condemns the religious leaders. Matthew chapter 23, starting at verse 13. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourselves, and you won't let others enter either. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are. Blind guides, what sorrow awaits you, for you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but that it is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Blind fools, which is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say that to swear by the altar is not binding, but to swear by the gifts on the altar is binding. How blind! For which is more important, the gift on the altar or the altar that makes the gift sacred? When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and everything on it. But when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God, who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God, who sits on the throne. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb gardens, but you ignore the more important aspects of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Blind guides, you strain your water so you won't accidentally swallow a gnat, but you swallow a camel. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisee, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, then the outside will become clean too. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly you look like religious people, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you build tombs for the prophets your ancestors killed, and you decorate the monuments of the godly people your ancestors destroyed. Then you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we would never have joined them in killing the prophets. But in saying that, you testify against yourselves that you are indeed the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead and finish what your ancestors started. Snakes, sons of viper, how will you escape the judgment of hell? Therefore, I am sending you prophets and wise men and teachers of religious law, but you will kill some by crucifixion, and you will flog others with whips in your synagogues, chasing them from city to city. As a result, you will be held responsible for the murder of all godly people of all time, from the murder of the righteous Abel to the murder of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you killed in the temple between the sanctuary and the altar. I tell you the truth, this judgment will fall on this very generation. And now the commentary. Being a religious leader in Jerusalem was very different from being a pastor or in secular society today. Israel's history, culture, and daily life centered around its relationship with God. The religious leaders were the best known, most powerful, and most respected of all leaders. Jesus made these stinging accusations because the leaders' hunger for more power, money, and status had made them lose sight of God, and their blindness was spreading to the whole nation. The Pharisees' converts were attracted to religion, not to God. By getting caught up in the details of their additional laws and regulations, they completely missed God, to whom the laws pointed. A religion of works puts pressure on people to surpass others in what they know and do. We're gonna have to come back to this. All right. Good morning, everybody. It's part 2.
Sorry about the commotion. We have a guinea that has lost its friends,
Yep.
and she's the only one left. And we really think that she's kind of done, and she keeps wanting to visit our 70 to 80 pound fur babies.
Yeah.
So that's not a good combination.
No, it's not.
So
we had to go out there and rescue it. Well, we're all good now, so we're going to continue on. I'm just going to reread the last paragraph where I stopped and continue on with the commentary. The Pharisees' converts were attracted to religion, but not to God. By getting caught up in the details of their additional laws and regulations, they completely missed God, to whom the laws pointed. A religion of works puts pressure on people to surpass others in what they know and do. Thus, a hypocritical teacher was likely to have students who were even more hypocritical. We must make sure we are not creating Pharisees by emphasizing outward obedience at the expense of inward renewal. It is possible to obey the details of the law, but still be disobedient in our general behavior. For example, we could be very precise and faithful about giving 10% of our money to God, but we refuse to give 1 minute of our time in helping others. Tithing is important, but giving a tithe does not exempt us from fulfilling God's other directives. The Pharisees strained their water so that they wouldn't accidentally swallow a gnat, an unclean insect according to the law. Meticulous about the details of ceremonial cleanliness, they nevertheless had lost their perspective on inner purity. In essence, they would then swallow a camel and not even notice. They were ceremonially clean on the outside, but had corrupt hearts. Jesus condemned the Pharisees and religious leaders for outwardly appearing upright and holy, but inwardly remaining full of corruption and greed. Living our Christianity merely as a show for others is like washing only the outside of a cup. When we are clean on the inside, our cleanliness on the outside won't be a sham. These prophets, wise men, and teachers were probably leaders in the early church who had been persecuted, scourged, and killed, as Jesus predicted. The people of Jesus' generation said they would not act as their fathers did in killing the prophets whom God had sent to them. That was in Matthew 23:30. But they were about to kill the Messiah himself and his faithful followers. Thus, they would become guilty of all the righteous blood shed through the centuries. Jesus summarized his history of Old Testament martyrdom. Abel was the first martyr in Genesis 4. Zechariah was the last martyr mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, which is arranged differently from our English Bibles and ends with 2 Chronicles. Zechariah was a classic example of a man of God who was killed by those who claimed to be God's people. That's in 2 Chronicles 24, verses 20-21.
you said that there's a picture going to go with today's...
The 7 sorrows that was mentioned, they're going to be explained, and that's very true. Again, we try to bring new Christians, we explain to them the free gift of Christ, and then, we get them in church, and now you have to, in order to follow, you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you got to make sure you follow this rule and that rule, and we heap all these things, man-made rules, and forget about the free gift of Christ that Christ has given us, which has given us freedom.
Right.
Freedom in Him, not necessarily freedom from, our responsibilities, but we want to do our responsibilities joyfully and not as a work.
To show others what Christ has done for us, not to earn Christ.
Yeah. Or to show everybody, well, look at how I do all this and I do all that. Well, so what?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything unless the motive is true and pure.
Right. Okay. This is a two-part thing.
And well, it'd be three-part with the picture. I apologize, but sometimes life happens.
Life does happen on a farm.
And it happens everywhere. But here you can't plan things like
No.
that.
No, we can't.
When you have a guinea on your porch,
Yeah.
It's something you got to address right then.
And two herding dogs that love to chase things. So.
Right.
Okay. Hope everybody has a glorious day, and we'll talk to you later.